It's no secret that Batman Returns is a divisive film. I find most people either love it or hate it. And while I don't personally hate it, I do remember it being the first film I saw in theaters that I was disappointed by. At the time, Batman '89 was one of my favorite films, and I couldn't wait to return to the world Tim Burton had created. Except I never got to. And that's because Batman Returns feels like a very different movie from Batman '89, disconnected from the first film both in style and story. And there's a very good reason for this. Burton was initially reluctant to return for the sequel, so to get him to come back, the studio gave him complete creative control. That's why Returns feels less like a Batman movie and more like a Tim Burton movie. And while Burton was debating whether or not to return, Warner Brothers went ahead without him and hired Sam Hamm, who wrote the meat and potatoes of the '89 Batman script, to write the sequel. And this version of Batman Returns is very different from the movie we got. In fact, it would have been much closer to what I was hoping to see back in '92. But would it have been better? Let's dive in and take a look back at what could have been. While Hamm originally wanted to focus on Harvey Dent's heel turn into Two-Face, Warner Brothers wanted Penguin to be the main villain instead, who in this version is a master thief on the hunt for 5 Raven statuettes belonging to each of the 5 richest families of Gotham, known as the Raven Society. Now I know what you're thinking, this sounds kind of stupid, and I agree. But before you cast judgment, let me explain because it's actually kind of interesting. Back in 1880, the Gotham Treasury was looted. On the verge of bankruptcy, the city was bailed out by 5 wealthy businessmen in exchange for land and mineral rights and service contracts, which only made them and their families wealthier and more powerful over the subsequent generations. What the people of Gotham don't know, however, is that these 5 men were behind the robbery of Gotham's treasury to begin with, and then hid the stolen fortune under one of the men's homes, deep beneath it, in a cave. A bat cave. See, Bruce Wayne's great-great-grandfather was one of these rich men, and after the robbery, commissioned the creation of the Ravens, which, when combined, would reveal the location of the fortune they stole. Bruce, however, is completely unaware of this, and when he asks Alfred about the Raven, he tells him that he gave it to one of his father's associates after Bruce's parents were murdered. Speaking of their murder, we also learned that Jack Napier was hired to silence Thomas Wayne from revealing the true story of the stolen treasury to the public. Now, I'm usually against retcons. I'm looking at you, Spider-Man 3, but I think this one kind of works. Napier was a gangster, so him killing the Waynes as a hired hit works within his established profession and really just adds more depth to the first film without changing too much. Although I understand if you hate this change. Back to the Penguin, who when we first meet is breaking out of prison. He then enlists the help of Catwoman to help him find these ravens and locate the stolen treasure. Now in this version of Batman Returns, Catwoman is a master jewel thief and not a secretary working for Max Schreck, who's also nowhere to be found in this script. Together, Penguin and Catwoman concoct a scheme to frame Batman for the murders of Gotham's elite in order to keep him preoccupied with the police while they go after the 5 ravens. Now, speaking of framing Batman and ruining his public image, this version of Batman Returns also takes place during Christmas. And at the start of the film, Batman merchandise is everywhere in a meta nod to the real-life Bat fever that gripped the nation when Batman '89 came out. And in this version of the Batman Returns script, after Batman's heroic acts in the first film, there was the same real-life Bat fever here in Gotham. That is until Catwoman and the Penguin frame him and all of Batman's merchandise is taken off the shelves and replaced by Ninja Turtles and Simpsons merchandise. Not sure I love that gag, but moving on. After a fight with Catwoman, Batman finds himself fleeing from the cops and, in a nod to The Dark Knight Returns, mounts a horse during his escape. Afterwards, Selina makes Bruce her pet project and attempts to seduce him into handing over his Raven statuette, which she doesn't realize Alfred already gave away. Speaking of love interests, Vicki Vale is back too and still working as a news photographer. She's covering a story about a greedy developer who also happens to be a member of the Raven Society and wants to gentrify low-income communities in order to build high-rises. During her investigation, Vicki befriends Dick Grayson, who is one of the homeless kids living in this community. Not exactly comic accurate. Bruce and Vicki eventually take him in, and similar to Batman Forever, Dick learns of Bruce's secret identity. After Penguin and Catwoman succeed in collecting all 5 ravens, they're directed to the location of the looted treasure below Wayne Manor. The climax of the film is somewhat similar to Riddler and Two-Face's home invasion in Batman Forever, with with Bruce and Alfred becoming incapacitated. As the Penguin scours the house for the entrance to the cave, Vicki tries to fight off Catwoman. In the meantime, Dick fights off Penguin's goons and then wakes up Bruce, who heads down to the Batcave and changes into Batman, and then goes upstairs to save Vicki from Catwoman. Batman and Catwoman then fight their way into the armory, as a nod to the first film, before a chandelier falls on Catwoman. She tries to slit her own throat with a piece of broken glass before Batman stops her and knocks her unconscious. While this is happening, Penguin discovers the Batcave, locates the treasure, and learns of Bruce's secret identity. He takes Vicki hostage, but is ultimately defeated by a swarm of bats before falling to his death. The film ends with Bruce, Alfred, Dick, and Vicki celebrating Christmas in Wayne Manor, as Bruce suggests using the looted treasure to provide shelter for the people displaced by the new condo developments. Then in the final moment of the film, Bruce gives Vicki her Christmas present, a diamond engagement ring. There's some interesting things in the script and a lot to like, but if I'm being honest, the climax at Wayne Manor feels underwhelming. Plus, the villain's characters are kind of weak too. I see why Burton wanted to rewrite this to give both Penguin and Catwoman some depth, as in this version, both are pretty one-dimensional.
Most of the stuff that I had done for that movie wound up being scrapped. And the decision that came out of that was just basically to go with pretty much a whole new direction with the story.
It's also interesting how many elements from this script would show up in later films, whether in Batman Forever or even the Nolan films, whether that's a coincidence or not. For example, there's a red beret-wearing vigilante gang known as the Order of the Bat, who wear Batman t-shirts and patrol the streets.
What gives you the right? What's the difference between you and me?
I'm not wearing hockey pads.
Whether or not this version of Batman Returns would have been better or not is hard to say, but let me know in the comments below which version you prefer. I'd love to know what you think. And also, if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button so you can be first in line to see what we're cooking up in the lab for you next. We got a lot of great videos on the way. Thanks for watching.